This is a DoralParksBond.org website. I'm going to go through the website really quickly with you. This is basically the presentation. There's some really key points in here which I will point out specifically that you want to pay attention to. I also have Mario here from IT. He is our Vanna White. He will be going through the website and assisting me. So thank you, Mario, very much. We appreciate it. Alejandro from Public Affairs is also here somewhere in the room. Mario, if you can please go to the About section, which is right here. It talks about what a bond is. In a nutshell, it's taking an advancement out. It's like a mortgage. And advancements to pay now for the projects that will be identified. Why is it needed? I went through it right now when we were discussing it. But the other part of this that I didn't go through is if you scroll down, and if you want to see the master plan, it's also here. So if you click right there, that black button, it takes you to the entire master plan document that talks about the trends, the analysis that we spoke about. It talks about our current park situations and the future green spaces of our city. If you scroll down the same site, it also identifies that your property taxes is divided by percentage. 42% Miami-Dade County, 42% go to public schools, and 10 to 11% go to the city of Doral. That is where your property tax is divided. If you would like to see exactly your property taxes, if you click on this link below, which Mario is going to do right now, you can click in your address here and it will have a pie chart from your property taxes that tell you exactly where your taxes are going. As much as they're going for the county or for public schools, for stormwater, and things of that nature. The pie chart that you actually see on the screen as an example is actually my house. So I used it as an example in Costa Verde. You can scroll, unless somebody wants to find out what the property tax is. Go to the next page. Go to the next tab under, which I think is why it's needed. Go back up, Oliver. All right, what's included? So as I identified, this is what's included in the master plan, and these are the techniques that we discussed a little while ago. The community profile, trends analysis, site evaluation, stakeholder interviews, workshops, level of service acreage, amenities, and access. And this is what we use to identify the demands and the priorities. And this is how we got to the top projects. Scroll down. So the top projects are Doral Central Park, and we'll go into that a little bit. The Doral Cultural Arts Center. A new walk to park, which one of the things that the city, one of the goals for the city and across Miami-Dade County is to have a park within 10-minute walking distance from your home. That is one of the goals, and that with the bond passes, that would be one of the initiatives we would be foreseeing. We would do improvements to existing parks and expand 5 miles of trails. Go to the next tab, which I think is one of the most important things that I want to identify. What would it cost? So we thought this was important. One of the main goals for the mayor and council, along with administration, is to be transparent. We wanted to make sure that you all, the community, when making this decision, can put in exactly how this would affect you financially. So what we identified is how this calculator, basically, that identifies what it would cost. So there's 2 ways of doing it. I'm a person, and I left it the 2 ways, even though we identified that we did a GIS map that identifies exactly by putting your address, it calculates it. We also put in here, if you go to Miami-Dade County Property Appraisal website, which you can click on the link, you would type in your address, and I'll type in mine for the sake of it, 9816 Northwest 32nd Street. I think you're gonna have to copy the folio number. Oh, click on it. Go scroll down. So when you go to this page, you type in your address, you would look at the city's taxable value. This is after homestead exemption, and this is what you would copy and paste this number and go back to the city's website, scroll down. You would paste it right here and calculate the annual impact. And this is what annually, $113, monthly, $9.45, and weekly, $2.18. That is my home. Some people are higher, some people are lower. It depends when you bought your house. It depends how much your house is assessed after homestead exemption. If you have homestead exemption, those all things are part of the calculation. Or you can make it easier. I did that so you can see the process and the steps by steps of doing it. You can actually, or just go to the city's official calculator And you can just type in the same address, which I'll type it in again, so you can see that. And you go right here, up here, find address, 9816 Northwest 32nd Street. You have to separate the street. So be careful. Any little, if it doesn't read it right, it will say error. Just make sure you separate it. And there it is. The same information broke down yearly, monthly, and weekly. So that's this home. Again, everybody's assessed value is different. If the manager put in his address, it would be higher because he recently bought his home about 4 years ago. So his assessed value is a little higher. So everybody's different. We wanted to make sure that this was available to you all so that you can make a sound decision based on your income on an annual basis. Go back to the website, Mario. Just scroll down. So the funds are distributed, the $150 million are distributed by green space. They're done by projects too, but 24% will go to green space, natural areas, sports field, and play area. 22% will go to park infrastructure. That's basically the support system, lighting, stormwater, landscape, security. 21% for Doral Aquatics Facility, 17% for community center and restrooms, 10% for Doral Cultural Arts Pavilion, 3% for walking and biking trails, 2% for specialty recreation areas, and 1% for improvements of existing parks. If you do it distributed by project, these are the 5 projects. Doral Central Park is 80% of it, which is $128 million. Doral Cultural Arts, $10 million. New Walk to Park, 6. Expanded Trail Network, $5 million, and improvements to existing park, $1 million, and it equals to $150 million. The research was done and we did cost estimates for all these projects, so we made sure that we were accurate. Part of the cost estimates as well for these projects is that we also identified the fact, and I'm going to go through the timeline, that these won't be built tomorrow. They're going to take some time between permitting and design, so we've accounted for 3.5 increase every year from when we identified if the bond passes, and this is the timeline. So if the bond passes November 6th, the bond issuance will happen sometime in 2019, and it would be issuance in different phases. It won't just all be at once either. And then the design and permitting will take about 1.5 to 2 years. If anybody's done permitting, we all know that Miami-Dade County, Durham, state agency get involved, and it's a process. It does take long. We want to be realistic. So the shovels in the ground will go in around maybe early 2020, mid 2020, and then early 2022, and then all projects will probably take 4 to 5 years to complete. For example, Doral Central Park, which we will go into now, the project will take 18 to 24 months to complete the entire 82 acres. The bikeway system will be ongoing throughout the 4 to 5 years. The cultural facility will probably take about 12 to 14 months to complete. So we've identified all of this in the timetable and identified 4 to 5 years to complete all the projects included in the bond. The ballot language, and I'm going to go into this because a lot of people get to the polls and they read these questions. They're like, what if do I vote yes and that means no? Do I vote no and that means yes? It's simple. You vote yes, that means that you want the bond to pass. You vote no, it means you don't want the bond to pass. It's simple. The bond question is, and I'm going to read it. The title is Doral Parks for Tomorrow, General Obligation Bonds Referendum for Parks, Natural Areas, and Recreation Facilities. To improve public health and protect natural areas by building/improving parks and recreation facilities with safety features including, but not limited to, green spaces, community centers, cultural amenities, aquatic facility, playgrounds, sports fields, and 5 miles of walking/cycling trails, shall Doral issue general obligation bonds within maximum lawful interest rates maturing within 30 years from each issuance not exceeding $150 million payable from ad valorem taxes with independent and annual audits and an oversight committee. That is a question. Just to go into it, there will be a citizens oversight committee that will be overseeing the funds and how they're used and making sure they're properly used. The information on the question, the green spaces, aquatic, all of that stuff is what we will be using the funds for. It is clear. It's the law. We will be using the funds for that if the bond passes. To go into these projects that are identified in the question, we'll go start with Doral Central Park. There's a video, and I would like to play it if we can, Mario. This is just Central Park. Is there sound? So this is what the concept, well, we have what the architects design as far as a concept based on the park's master plan. This is the fourth concept for Doral Central Park, and this is actually a scale, a version that is multi-generational, multi-purpose, multi-seasonal, meaning 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, it could still be used. We're not identifying program space that then 10 years from now, and just to use an example, maybe baseball isn't that in, and now we have to remove the baseball field and put another field in. We did it that it's baseball can be played there, soccer, field hockey, lacrosse. We can have a picnic. So we made sure that it was something that can be used for years to come. The sound is not working, but that's okay. I think the video says it right enough. It's okay. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, guys. My voice is beautiful. So this is a cultural plaza. One of the things identified is more social gathering spaces for the community. And again, any from toddlers to children to families, senior citizens, you name it. And it's also ADA compliant, special needs. The park was thought about everyone and anyone at any age. There's an event lawn space, another small dog area for this area because the other dog park is on the north side of Doral. And again, the multi-purpose green spaces. There's a running track there. If you run 3 times around the loop, it equals a mile. There'll be exercise equipment, a skate park. The other area was a learn to ride bike as well. Here's our fitness loop. There will be fitness equipment, as I stated. Shade, which is very important. Sand volleyball by the water. We've also incorporated the lake. One of the things with this concept is we wanted to embrace the lake. The lake is not the back, we're embracing it as part. And as you can see, we have a nature walk with pavilions, nature trails, with a lot of shaded area. There'll be pavilions, barbecues all through the park, restrooms all through the park, playgrounds. Enough parking is another thing. The infrastructure was very important. And basically, this is the concept for Doral Central Park. This is from an aerial perspective, looking down. This is 92nd Avenue. One of the things I want to point out, go back to the page, we can concept. Scroll down real quick. Scroll down again, just real, so we can go to the concept right there. So one of the things we did with this is that 87th Avenue, the traffic on 87th Avenue is pretty heavy. So we've identified that the entrance now will be off 92nd Avenue so that we can take the traffic off 87th Avenue and bring it in through 92nd. Doesn't mean you cannot get in through 87th. It just means that the heavier traffic is moved to 92nd Avenue so we can alleviate 87th Avenue as well. Because the aquatic facility is something that may be very popular, and so will the community center. Scroll down, and I've already identified, this is more detail of some of the amenities here. Please visit the website so you can take a look at the amenities. And then there's some other images of the visuals from the inside, an indoor gym, a running track inside, a fitness center. Sorry. One of the other things that this facility will have is a child watch. So if you guys have gone to IKEA and you have kids and you leave your kids, you can leave your kids in the child watch while you go shopping. The idea would be if you need to go do a fitness class and leave your child, playing with other children while you take a fitness class, or you go to Zumba, or maybe you have date night, that the children have a place to hang out with other kids, while adults sometimes want to be adults. And I know what that feels like now. Again, more concepts. Sorry, my earpiece, my TED Talk is not working. More concepts, the aquatic facility. Go down, scroll down. And then you all can go through these pages. There's just visuals so that you can see and imagine yourself at the park. Keep scrolling down slowly so that they can just go through it a little faster. There'll be tennis, ping pong tables out on the courtyard. Again, the nature boardwalk. We want to create an aviary for birds, sensory play for special needs and just young children. Scroll down. Again, the dog park is there, and I think the loop. And you can read all of this. There's a lot of information, more detailed information on each one of these characteristics. If you can go to the next East, which is a Doral Cultural Center, if I'm not mistaken. Cultural Pavilion, excuse me. And the idea behind this is one of the things in the master plan was that the cultural arts, the arts was something that was also in high demand, to have more of art galleries. So one of the things identified as part of the master plan was a cultural facility. And instead, we have a lot of events out here. As you can see, it's a nice art gallery, but this space was not identified for art galleries. We need a space for art galleries where you can have storage. We can have events at this facility. You can scroll down. So this is a concept, and actually we just had a workshop on the concept. It'll be a 9,000 square foot cultural arts pavilion. Scroll down. And this is the layout. So we would have a restroom facility, which there's no current restrooms at this site. We would have a catering room, multi-purpose space, art gallery space, offices, have a visitor center. And if you all know our planning and zoning director, he wants to be the historian of this. So there will also be history as part of this area, that we can identify the city of Doral's history in the lobby. And there's program summary. We would also, the actual design, I don't know, go down. Let me see if it's here. Yeah, it's this picture. So we would have, it's a connection to downtown Doral. It would be one entire park. It's not two separate parks. And there's a stairway, accessible rooftop plaza, amphitheater, green roof terrace that will be here. People can have lunch out here. We can have events. They can walk around. It's another gathering space as well. Scroll down. And again, expanding our green system. The next project is the new walk to park. And again, as identified, that we want to have, one of the goals is to have a park in 10-minute walking distance from your home. This is a concept that we have looked at. It's again just concept right now. It's about 3 acres on the White Course south of here. And if you scroll down, I think we have an image of what the park could look like. So we would have fitness trail, garden pack, picnic shelters, open green space again, multi-purpose, sculptural, outdoor fitness, restroom. A lot of the community enjoys just open green space because, again, you can either play soccer, you can have frisbee, you can do a picnic, many things you can do with just open green space. And a playground, of course. Restrooms is really important. And this is right off 41st Street here to the south. We have, so improving to existing parks, I've identified 3 parks: Morgan Levy, Doral Meadow, and Trails and Tails. Trails and Tails right now currently has no lighting, so we would add lighting to Trails and Tails, and we would add lighting to the trails across it as well. Doral Meadow, the building is not programmed functionally, so we would actually redo the building internally so that we can have Zumba classes or maybe an art class there. Instead of having to drive to Morgan Levy to get your art class, if you live by Doral Meadow, you can go to Doral Meadow and take your art class at Doral Meadow. So we would enhance and improve that building at Doral Meadow. So we've identified 3 different projects. And then the last one is 5 miles to our trail system. And again, our trail system is actually really great. And we want to connect more to our park. So this project will add 5 more miles of off-trail, meaning they're shaded, it's under trees, it's safe, and you can either ride bike, walk, or run wherever you need to go in a safe pattern. And this identifies the trails here. If you go to the next tab, which is Get Involved. If you have not registered to vote, you still have a chance to vote. October 9th is the deadline to register to vote. And you can just register. We have it right here on our website, Miami-Dade County Voter Registration. It's important. Every vote counts. So if you haven't, it's really simple. If you are a voter and need to know what your voting precinct is, you can just click on that, type in your address, and it tells you exactly what your precinct or where you're supposed to go to vote.
And we serve as a financial advisor to the city of Doral. I just want to talk to you guys a little bit more about the financing aspect of the general obligation bonds that we're talking about tonight. I just want to talk to you a little bit more about the actual financing part of the bonds that we're talking about tonight. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and start diving into what the general obligation bond is. A general obligation bond is a financing mechanism, and Barbie used a good analogy. It's a lot like you or I going out for a mortgage to get a house. The city would go and use bonds to be able to finance this $150 million worth of parks. Now, these bonds are backed by the full faith and credit of the issuing municipality. So what that means is that there's a tax millage, and it's called debt service millage levy, that's put onto the residents that is used to pay back these bonds. So because it's using tax dollars, it's considered one of the most secure lines of credit for a financial issuance. So usually the interest rate on this kind of financing is a lot better than what you would find on other similar types of bonds. Usually GO bonds are issued for stuff like what you're seeing here with parks. It can be stuff like street and sidewalks, anything that's more of a general purpose use for the city. That's when general obligation bonds come into play. And since we are talking about millage and taxes, it does require that citywide voter referendum before we can go ahead and issue those bonds. And we're talking about a simple majority. It would just be the 50% plus one voter in order to kind of pass this issuance. We put together an outline of steps for what you would do when you go forth with this general obligation issuance. As you can see, we're already about halfway down this list of number 5. We're at the educational outreach part of the program. This is where we're kind of informing citizens of potential projects, and we're receiving feedback at this stage. Any sort of questions you guys have, we're of course open to answering those. Beyond this stage, we would start to go forth with actually issuing the bonds, presuming that it is passed in November. Part of the bond issuance process, the bonds themselves usually would take about 3 to 4 months to issue from start to finish once they are approved. So we're talking about, sometime in 2019 would be the first issuance of bonds. During that process, things that we do are seek credit ratings. We finalize the structure, which is just like on a mortgage, usually 30 years is a bond structure. And we finally receive the funds after we finish financing. So one of the things I just mentioned is during the bond financing process, one of the things that the city does is they go through the credit rating process. Now, the city of Doral already has a credit rating, and actually their credit rating is very strong. It's a AA from S&P. You can think of a credit rating sort of almost like your personal credit score. When you go to like a bank, they're gonna look at your score in order to see what sort of interest rate to give you. Likewise, when you go to the financial markets, investors in the city of Doral are gonna say, how reliable is the city of Doral? Are we gonna get our money back? And this credit score is a measure of that. So the answer for Doral is not very risky at all. The AA credit, as you can see, the scale goes from AAA all the way down to C. AA is a very high rating. That means you're gonna have no issue with entering the financial market, and you're gonna have a better interest rate than, say, a comparable city that has only a single A rating. So from that aspect, the city of Doral is good to go. What we wanted to do was provide some sample financing scenarios so you can see how this general obligation bond will affect you as a resident. So what we did was we took that $150 million and we did 2 things. We have one scenario where that $150 million is issued all at once, and we have a scenario where, as the city manager mentioned, we would have it issued in tranches. So, for example, $50 million now, $50 million in 2021, and $50 million in 2023, for example. What we did is we used that $193,000 homestead value that Barbie had mentioned earlier, and we wanted to show you a couple different interest rates to show you in different interest rate environments where that annual payment from you might fall. So what we want to kind of demonstrate here is that, from 4% to 5.5%, what we're currently estimating is 3.75% interest rate on these bonds. So these are all, above what we are thinking about right now. But we wanted to show you some somewhat conservative scenarios, just so you can kind of see that, from 4 to 5.5% is a big jump in interest rates. And you can see the annual impact is not, a huge difference. So we want to kind of point out that even in the worst case scenario, we're talking about a $10 to $15 increase, depending on, some nightmare scenario where interest rates skyrocket while we're trying to issue bonds. As we said, we find it to be unlikely right now, and in any case, the $150 million is all that's being approved. There's never going to be a time where we're issuing more than that. So as I mentioned, the more realistic scenario is that we would issue the $50 million in 2019, and we would do an additional tranche, probably about 2 years, and then 2 years after that for the full $150 million. This is because we don't expect the city to be able to spend $150 million immediately, and you want to try and line up the financing with the actual expenditures. So what this does is instead of having the full millage impact, the full tax payment immediately, it's staggered, as you can see in the chart here below. So, and this is a chart that actually Barbie had covered a little bit earlier. So you can see that if we issued a $50 million in 2019, we're talking about a $50 increase. It jumps to a $99 increase, and then finally to a $150 increase. And then eventually it tails down at the end over the 30-year lifespan. So the average comes out to be that $131 that we were speaking about earlier on an annual basis. So this, again, like the city manager mentioned, this is talking about zero growth of the tax base, no new construction. That's not a realistic scenario, but it's a conservative scenario. So we're trying to give you, more of a worst case scenario than what we really expect. If we did want to be, more realistic and talk about the city's tax base growing, that drives down the number that you're going to owe substantially. We start to talk more about like $107. But just in the interest of being conservative, we do want to give you $131 million or $131 annual, just to be conservative. That's really about it as far as the financing aspect. We always.
And then also, if you have further questions, we have an email that's directly goes to a few of us here in the city, and we will answer you, I promise you, within 24 hours. Or you can check out our Parks and Recreation Department. Along with that, the website, and I didn't point this out, it's also language. You can put it in Spanish. You can put it in Chinese. If you go and actually click on it, there's all the languages. So if you want to read it in a different language because you don't understand or you want to get clearer picture, it's all there. So Portuguese, I know that we have a lot of Brazilians in Doral, and we wanted to make sure it was friendly. So these are the projects. I am going to open it up for Q&A, which is my favorite part of the workshop. We have, just before I do that, we've sent out some mailers. You should be receiving them in the mail. It has more information on it. I have brought some here. Along with that, we also have a little brochure that is basically the website in a brochure, and some more information as well. And we also, if you don't want to speak because you don't like public speaking, we have a comment card. Please fill it out. Even if you already spoke, we want to hear from you. We want to know what your thoughts are. You don't have to put your information. You can keep it anonymous, or if you want to put your information, you can. Please fill these out. It's very helpful to hear back from you all afterwards as well. So I'm going to open it up. As I stated, raise your hand if you have a question. I'll be happy to answer it. Again, we're here to inform, to educate, not to advocate. At the end of the day, this is your decision when you go to the ballot, and basically that's where this is about. So, any questions?
All right. Say the bond goes forward, and every household is assessed, I guess, a cost. Would that cost increase over time? Did you say something about that?
So yes, it fluctuates with your assessed value. So if property values go up, it does fluctuate up. If property values go up, down, it goes down. So yes, it does fluctuate. What doesn't change is the interest rate and the 0.722 that we estimated. What changes is the property value. So yes, the answer is it does fluctuate.
So the property values can determine the actual annual cost, but also the interest rate?
No, the interest rate is a 4.25 interest rate.
Fixed for the 30 years?
Well, the issuance, once the issuance, from the issuance is when it's fixed from the issuance. That's when it is.
But for the 30 years?
For that, so we could do 3 phases. So if we issuance, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, we're going to be probably issuance in 3 or 4 different phases.
So could you use your home as an example for, let's say, $113 is the initial assessment?
Right.
How would that be affected over time if the values go up, go down, interest rates?
So next year, it may be $115 if the property value goes up. If you checked, you can check. As a matter of fact, you saw are on the Miami-Dade County's property website. Yeah. So there was 3 years that the property appraisal website shows you. You can actually see how it's either increased or decreased on there. So go up right there. You can use this. Go up, go back up. There's a 2008, there's a 2018, 2017, 2016. So once the property value in 2016 was 148,000. In 2017, it was 152,000 and 157. So it has gone up a little bit. So if I would let's put the 152,848 down here. 152,848. So it was 110, and then it went to 113. So yeah, it could increase $3, $4, $5, $10 as the years progress. But that also means, to answer that, because one of the questions we researched was, so these people, everybody's coming in, there will be more people buying houses. Is it for 30 years? It could be paid a lot faster, so it could be 25 years it ends up being versus 30 years. That's where it ends up being the difference as well. So if we pay upfront and as property values go up little by little, it ends up paying it off faster. So the debt, what identified in the feasibility study was that in order to pay it off through 30 years is about we have to pay a year 8.5 million a year back. And that's what is estimated at. And so as long as it's calculating the 8.5 million a year, we could pay it off earlier, basically. And instead of it being 30 years, it's 25 years.
All right, thank you.
So I have several questions, and if you want, I can make them, and then because they are all financial questions, let's say.
Okay.
So,
And I'll try my best. And if I don't have an answer, because there may be some things, and I'm not going to sit here and lie to you, I will get the question, and if you can fill out the card, put your email, and I can respond. And so, these frequently asked questions, I have Sasha in the back actually taking these questions. We will be putting them on the website, FAQs, so that we can answer them and make sure that they're answered correctly so that everybody has them. So there may be things I don't know.
perfect, thank you. So we're trying to get a bond of 150 million. I guess that we still don't have the interest rate for those 150 because we haven't voted yes or no. So that's the first one. What will be the interest rate for the?
Right now we're at 4.25.
But it's an estimate, right?
It is an estimate.
Okay.
Yes.
So the second question, is that going to be a fixed interest rate for the 30 years?
So I need to find from the issuance. I know it's fixed once you issue it. Just like
Okay.
a mortgage. Once you sign the mortgage, that one's fixed. But then if you issue it another one for 6 months later, it may be instead of 4.25, 4.27.
So that's my next question. Are we issuing a bond for 150 and getting the 150 in one lump sum, or are we getting 50 million and then getting the interest rate for 50 million, and then 5 years later we're getting another 50 million at a different interest rate, and then we get the final 50 million at a different interest rate? That is not the same thing as saying that when I put my property value, that's how it fluctuates. There are several things. One is my property value, and the other one is the interest rate that we are getting the bond to. And then the next question is, can we renegotiate that bond or not?
That one I need to. I don't know if you know that answer to that. The renegotiation, I'm gonna have to get back to you on that. But I want to go back to your other question because I want to make sure if I do have an answer. Your other question was issuance of every 5 years. It's not going to be every 5 years. We've identified how long, because when you issuance, you have to use it within 3.5 years of when you issue the bond. So we know that $150 million, we're not going to be able to complete it in 3.5 years. So therefore, we would do it in phases based on the projects. The interest rate, it's not going to be 5 years later. It's going to be somewhere within the next year or two. So it will be something around 4.25 as far as the interest rate. The 0.722, which is a millage, which is what the taxable, that doesn't change. That stays the same. So when they did the feasibility study, they did take account the interest rate. They did take account the fact that more people are buying homes here. So there's going to be a difference. Sometimes we may have a surplus. And one of the questions that we looked into today is that what happens with that surplus if we need $8.5 million to pay off the bond every year, because that's what it is, and then we end up with $9 million, that extra $500,000 goes to the bond and we pay it off earlier is what we're looking at. So or we leave it there so that maybe in the following year only $8 million and we use it to compensate for it's like a mortgage, and that's what we're looking at right now. Yes, Councilwoman.
I just think in order to clarify, I think what the question is, you guys are worried about the percentage of the interest rate. The percentage of the interest rate actually doesn't affect the payment of the bond that's going to be assessed to the homes. So what's going to be assessed to the homes is an increase in a millage rate that's going to be separate, which is
0.722.
0.722. So they have made the assessment that with that 0.722 is going to be the money that's going to be needed to cover the percentage rate that's going to be the interest rate and the percentage rate that's going to be the issuance of the bond. So just not to confuse, the interest rate is really not going to be assessed to you guys The interest rate is not going to be part of the assessment value that's going to go to the homes. That's something that the city's financial is going to worry about. What's going to be assessed to the home is the 0.722. And the only difference that that's going to make is on the assessed value of the homes. And like we said, if the assessment goes up, then that could decrease the amount of time that's going to be taken to pay the total price. So. Right. The interest plays a role on what the interest plays a role on what the city's financial responsibility is to pay the bond, but not to the resident, who's going to be paying the assessment. So we need to pay that amount, and the interest rate is going to play a part on it. And I think in we're talking about a year to two, so we shouldn't see a fluctuation that's going to be huge in the interest rate. If we have a deficit, we have to pay for it.
pay it, yeah. Whether it's reserves, right. Right, it's ad valorem.
Well, but it's not going to be. It's just not going to be assessed. You understand?
Right, it's not on the assessed.
What the council was trying to say is that the actual amount that is the assessed value for the 150 million that we are asking for, that percentage won't change. But at the end of the day, it's our responsibility with the taxes that we collect on a yearly basis, whether it's our millage rate or the rate that's being assessed on the bond, is to pay the bond back.
Right,
But because there is more properties coming online, which has been taken into account in this,
yeah.
we should be okay. But at the end of the day, to be very clear, our tax money is what funds the city, no matter what.
The only source.
No, there's
Bonds
other
and
sources,
whatever.
there's other
Not the only
sources.
source,
Yeah.
but
But
it
the
is
big
the
bang.
largest.
Yes.
Okay, I have a few questions. You did an excellent expose on what the money is going to be used for.
Correct.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
But believe it or not, to me was not clear that you were asking for a bond that would have to pay not one time, but several times towards the project.
I didn't understand
Okay,
that. I'm
so
sorry.
when you take a mortgage, you get hit one time or you sign the papers one time and then you pay over 30 years or whatever that is. I thought that was going to be the case here, but no, you tell me that you're going to be by phases. So that means that I will be charged not one time or 1 year on my assessment of my house, but I will get paid. I will be hit multiple times. I'm not talking about the repay, which is 30 years, right?
No, you only get, it's one time. What it won't be is that it won't
1
be-
year, one time, that's it?
No, not 1 year. It will be for
Ah.
30 years. But
Okay.
it's only one line item. And it's not, what it is that.
I will see
for
that
all
one
the-
line item 30 times, 30 years.
For 30 years, you're gonna have that, or maybe less. For 30 years or less, you will have that line item on there. What it is that you won't have as much, like the first phase is, let's say it's $50 million, it won't be as high. But the total amount will end up being there.
Okay.
But we cannot exceed $150 million. So you're not gonna get the assessment is for the amount, so maybe the first year is $50, not 113, because it's not the full $150 million.
Okay.
Do you understand? Or
The other thing you gotta take into consideration is that this
wait,
community.
give him the microphone. Sorry.
The other thing that needs to be taken into consideration is that you have a community the population could easily double in the next 10 years. And so the burden is going to be less be spread out within those by being able to pay the bond earlier. So
So that's exactly what I'm going with my question about very possible annexation. We know it's not a new topic. There's some areas and how they're going to be hit. Are they going to compensate for the time that we started paying and they're not? Well, that depends. You have to tell us. And also the overall total mileage of the city is going to grow because we see all those new constructions and so on. So that will be prorated every year to calculate how much the contribution in my house. Let's assume that my ad valorem stays the same for this exercise to 100,000. Do you agree that the total mileage roll of the city will not be the same this year, next year, and 5 years from now, right? So therefore, it has to be further diluted, right?
What was the last thing you said? I'm sorry.
It has to be diluted among all the mileage that you get from all the contributions from the city.
No, because your assessed value doesn't change. What happens is we will
It'll pay-
getting more money,
Exactly.
And then paying it off faster.
Okay, so
but it won't change because it's always based on your
Yeah, but you do the calculation every year. That's what I heard. Well, no, the calculation of how much every house will get, or is it that fixed percentage every house will get?
The millage is fixed. It's 0.722.
It's just like saying the millage rate of our taxes. Either we lower it or we go up or we keep it the same. What changes the amount you pay is the value of the house.
We end up paying it quicker.
Yes, if the bond is allowed us to do so. Because we had a bond in the city 10 years ago that we were not allowed to prepay, and that hit us very bad. So,
The city had a
yes,
a bond
I was
referendum?
there. It was a
Oh,
bond, it was
yeah,
an
but it wasn't-
internal bond.
okay.
But
I guess you
still,
can-
which brings me to my question. I'm sorry the financial guys are not here, but the council members are hearing what I'm saying. I please ask that you make sure that it's renegotiable and it's prepayable.
We'll make sure there's no prepaid loan.
Penalty,
Penalties.
yes, exactly. And the third thing is make the bond available to public to buy, because last time it was only
Oh,
offered to
yeah,
private
that's what-
investors,
yes.
and we were not able, if you choose to invest on the bond, to buy the bond, which has a fiscal benefit, a huge
Of course,
fiscal benefit
agreed.
if you live on that place.
Agreed.
So
I agree with that.
I think the explanation on the financial this website might need to have a component that makes it more clear, not just to calculate among your house what
Right.
will be the percentage, but explain what happens afterwards. I think most of that has been discussed here. You can catch the
Yeah,
essence.
we will.
It's not clear.
No, and we will. And I really appreciate the questions from you and Elizabeth.
And I do not see too much why you divide it by month, by week, and by day, because the only option I have to pay my state taxes is once a year.
I escrow mine, so I do mine monthly.
Yeah, but that's a private arrangement. That's optional.
Right. There
But
is
the
options
tax,
for that. That you may do it annually, but I do it monthly.
but the tax is paid to you or to the city only once per year.
Right, of course. But you can identify.
What it means, identify what that cost is to you,
Oh.
the burden
Right.
on a daily and a weekly
Okay.
and a monthly.
I mean, we do the annual, but the annual is there. We're not hiding the annual.
And again, I do think that people that come to the city later, either by annexation or grow, they will be in a benefit. They will pay less than us that we have been here since the day if the bond is issued. So maybe you can factor a calculation there, or via mitigation with the park impact fee, or a catch up for the bond, because it's not fair. By the time the day the fund is, the park or the facility is open, we know it's going to be, let's say, 3 or 5 years from now. There's no reason why a person who bought a house 1 month before the park is open didn't pay the last 5 years as the rest of us did. So there's ways and formulas that you can calculate that, either by as a compensation or a tax mitigation fee for the parks to compensate the participation into the fund. It will be fair to all.
We appreciate your suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, the gentleman back there? Oh, no, he doesn't want to? He doesn't want to speak? Are you sure? Yeah.
I don't think I know.
No, you have to. They record you.
I'm very loud.
They have to record you. Yeah, but
So my first question, because I was going through the website last night, this morning, everywhere what I could find, I want to know how the money is going to be used and why is that amount, $150,000, especially when you're going to do any type of construction. One of the most expensive assets that you're going to get is the land. We already have the land. So $150 million is a lot of money.
Right.
So,
I know you got here a little late, and I did explain.
and
I
that's
did
fine.
go-
That's why I did
no.
my research before I got here.
No, but the website does identify exactly what the funds are being used for. If you can put it back up, Mario. It's, oh, okay, I have to sign back in.
Yeah, but my question is for Here we go. Okay, this is more.
So this is not for one project. It's, part of it is for Doral Central Park. When I talked about the timeline, we're not gonna, if the bond passes on November 6th, it's not, the shovels in the ground are not gonna go in tomorrow nor next year because we have to go through a design and permitting process. The costs do include the design, the construction documents, and the permitting. That is part of the cost as well. Along with that, Central Park, if you go to, yeah, what would it, I think it's there. Scroll down. Or maybe what's it include? Okay, yeah, go down. So we'll go over, we'll make it very clear because I don't want to, thank you. Can you make it a little bigger? So Doral Central Park, if we built it today, it's actually $90 million. But because we know that it's going to take 2 to 3 years, we've incorporated a 3.5% increase every year because construction cost does go up. For example, steel is higher, concrete is higher, things of that nature. So we sat with a cost estimator to make sure that.
You already have estimates from different companies that they gave you an estimate that you will ended up
Yes.
spending $128
We,
million?
no, we sat with a cost estimator, someone that identifies that it's part of the construction, that's done construction for years in airports, seaports, parks, infrastructure, all of
So we
that.
have at least 5 companies bidding on it.
We would have a lot more. As far as the bidding process, there would be many companies
Because
bidding
my
on
question
this.
comes, that's why it's a formulated question, because
Right.
then it comes like, if you negotiate to get different quotes and go with the best BBB,
Right.
right? Then maybe we don't need that much money. Why we all have to pay that much money for something that can be even lower? If you actually do bidding on different companies that will give you a
know.
great service, that will give you the right construction, that they will do everything right, and that they will actually bid for prices. Because once you have more than one company, you can negotiate on the price.
Of course. And
Like
our
I-
city,
if-
I'm
like
gonna,
if I
our
was
city
gonna do my
manager stood
back,
up, so I'm gonna
I
let him
negotiate with
speak.
5 people.
Thank you, Eddie.
So part of this process was to have consultants come in, you scope the projects, and you develop a plan, and then you have estimators come in and give you what projections of the construction costs are to establish a budget for these things. These are not hard quotes, because we don't know, we haven't done full construction drawings for any of these projects yet, but just so that you can put something into perspective, just between the bigger components of Doral Central Park, you have over $50 million worth of construction without doing anything else to the park. So there's a lot of, and you have the cultural pavilion is $10 million. We're using past history and what other projects similar size, similar nature and scope have cost. So that's where we come up. If there's any savings in any of these projects, it'll just go to further and expand and broaden the amount of things that we can do. Or maybe that's it. You can take less money. I mean, there's options, but there's also the possibility that it could be more money than what we asked for, and then we have to go and find another way of financing that. So right now, what we're working on is a number that we feel is a conservative number, and it's one that's been analyzed by professionals. It's not anything that's based on any hard bids. The only thing that we do have a little bit more better idea about is like I said, is the 2 bigger components in the proposed Central Park projects. And obviously we go through a procurement process, and if there's one thing that I do is negotiate contracts to make sure I get the best price.
Yes, going back to his question,
No, I have.
where I'm coming from. 10 years from now, you guys are not gonna be here in the government, but we are gonna be here anyway.
Yeah, I live here, so does he. I mean, well, some of us live here. We
I
work
live
and
here too.
We live and work here.
Right.
We live here. I live here. We're just letting you know. We're part of, we're,
We, the Doral resident homeowners, are more than you guys. We're probably 10, 20, 50 people here. We are hundreds and hundreds of people. So that's where I'm coming from. Right now, I'm actually paying for a bond that, as he's saying, will be good if somebody that comes new will be retroactive. But I'm paying for a bond that I didn't even know I have to pay for it. You're paying for CDD.
Yeah.
that's not the city.
That's
That's
not-
not the city.
I already called like several government companies, institutions, offices for the last 4 or 5 years, and every year I get $1,200. And the explanation that I get is, oh, the builder did a bond, and the bond is to do the street, blah, 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 blah. But he charged so much for the houses, why he couldn't pay for the streets?
That's not us.
Yeah, that.
But I'm just giving you an example.
Yeah.
So that
Right.
will happen to whoever a new homeowner comes in 5 years from now, 10 years from now. That person is going to come buy a house, and then he's going to be one with another amount of money that didn't even know that they had to. And my question, going back to $150 million, is a lot of money.
Mhm.
And I need to ensure, as a resident of Doral for the last 14, 15 years, and I'm sure that many of you will probably be here for longer, I need to know that every penny is used properly. It's used for what it's supposed to.
And that's, we,
It's not managed in the wrong way.
no, definitely.
It's not used for wrong things.
We
Or
are,
somebody increase their salaries or things like that.
no, we can't use the funding for salaries at all, or operations, or maintenance. No, we're letting you know, and there's also gonna be an oversight, committee created by residents, administrators, yes, there's be a group, yeah. So that And the oversight committee will oversee the funding being used properly as well.
I mean, there's going to be a whole, with this comes support that we have as we start to establish debt management consultants that will help us make sure that we manage our debt, the financial consultants that we have to make sure that, you know, that our finances are in order. And in addition to that, we have the oversight committee, which is one of the things that is very specific even in the bond language. So I think there's redundancy built in that's going to assure that there's transparency and that the money is being used for what it's being proposed to be used for. Yeah, right. Well, we have yearly financial audits that we do just normally, just for our normal finances. That this is going to be part of those audits that are yearly, and those reports are posted and available to the public to review.
At the end, then I can't read.
Thank you. Going back to Pierre's question about the length and who comes after, for the few still developer space that exists, is there anything that you have considered for the developer of those small spaces to contribute to this 150 million? Or it's only owners, homeowners, and
You need the microphone.
So right now, we have, what we always have is for the developers, they pay a park impact fee fund. And that goes to the development of parks. Huh? Well, we're working on, we did an analysis to go ahead and see if the impact fee needs to be raised. We have a proposal right now that we're working through to raise the amount of the impact fee, the contribution of the developer. So there's something being done right now to find an alternative. You know, so it's not just the burden is not just on the residents or the businesses that are already being built, because the commercial businesses pay into this as well.
And the vacant land also so they are paying into it, in a sense, a lot less, but, and the vacant land.
But remember that I know we have few land areas left for development, but council just approved. Thank you. I know we don't have a lot of areas that are going to be developed from the ground up, but council just approved going forward with these new fees for the park impact fees. So remember that we also have redevelopment. That's what you're going to start seeing. So that's also going to take an impact on that. So we are trying to be fair in the fees that we're charging to developers, because we understand that they have a lot of benefits that they get from the sales, and we want to make sure that they're paying the right amounts, that we're being fair, that they're being charged the right amount. So we're actually, management has done a great job in revisiting those fees and making sure that we're up to level with some other areas that surround us. We might not be the highest, but we're definitely not going to be the lowest anymore. So we're going to make sure that they're paying the right fees and they're contributing the right amounts to the city of Doral. So.
But going back to that, the park's impact fee is a one-time shot that you charge. I know that you just reviewed what number it is. But on top of that, you can also add the bond impact fee for the exact same 2.6 or whatever magic number you mentioned to us to them. Because it's 30 years. It's not a one-shot payment that we're doing. So there is no reason why they pay 1 year an impact fee on that, and we're still catching up with us. I think there is very easy formulations that you can do, saying that whatever EOC that you issue, a certificate of occupancy, you need to pay that fee, which is a contribution to the fund. Because it's not fair, again, the first facility improvement that's here is going to be open if it passes in at least 5 years. I stand to my point. Everybody has to chip in. So from now until the first facility is open, they need to pay for 5 years, not 1 year, that impact fee.
Yeah.
The new businesses and residents that are being put to service, either to commercially or residentially.
It's something that I assume we would have to look into, and I'm looking at the city attorney for some guidance as to whether that's something that can be done, because at the end of the day, they do pay taxes still on that land. The value may not be as much as when a house is built, but they still, till today, as of the day that is issued, they will be paying taxes on that land as well. So I don't know if there's
a difference that can be
Yeah.
added, but there may not be some.
And again, some of these things, Pierre, that you have stated, yeah, he's a new attorney. And again, we are taking notes on some of these questions. They will be up with response. We're going to go through the bond counsel, the attorney. We'll all sit together and make sure that we had the accurate information on there as far as and some of your suggestions. We'll look into see if that's even something possible. We don't know if that's even legal to do. So that's the other thing. But we hear you loud and clear, and we appreciate the suggestion.
Public offering and prepaid clause and the penalties are. Those three, I'm sure they are. And I don't see that on the verbiage of the bond question. I know that there was a revote on the question, but it can be revisited because for me it will be essential that it's written on the bond question.
It's the issuance, yeah.
But definitely, I wouldn't vote for it if it didn't have that.
Going back to the same thing is, I will appreciate if you can look into that because going to the CDD, the developers have a lot of good things on their hand, and almost everybody here has a CDD that we're paying 30 years also, which helps them with the streets, with the drainage, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So if we can look into that to give them an impact fee of some sort to help us with our parks that we need because we are developing and we are bringing more people, it's like a vicious circle in which we are.
We hear you.
And my last question is, just because I might be confused, but to me, the white course is something that it's a private property, Scodina or something.
We own 3 acres.
Why are we developing that?
We own 3 acres.
We own 3 acres of land, and that is going to be a public park.
That has always been ours, or?
It's something that was negotiated and proffered to us. So we have approximately 3 acres.
No.
No, it was part.
No, it was part of the negotiation.
It was part of the master development agreement. And I think it was in exchange for impact fees.
Well,
Yes, sir.
Okay, maybe, I'm a numbers guy. I can play numbers all day. But I look at this completely different. I really don't care other residents that come in or don't come in or not. To me, what I'm going to get.
Hold on. Please, I ask for respect. That's all I ask for. Thank you.
I'm talking about my opinion. Okay. To me, I look at it and I say, literally, for less than a drink a month cost at Doral City Place, okay, my kids and my grandkids are going to have the best parks in the state of Florida. And that, to me, is worth so much more than $10 a month. So that the money is handled correctly, absolutely. That the bond is renegotiable, things like that, absolutely. But I don't understand, I really don't, and I've been in the city of Doral for way over 20 years. I've been, other than the last administration, I've been the chairman of the Parks Advisory Board since the very beginning, and I look at value. What am I getting for my money? And like I said, for less than you spend for one drink a month in the city of Doral, whether it's City Place or downtown or wherever, you're getting this for you, for your kids, for your grandkids, for their kids. Okay? And really, guys, come on. $113 a year? That's peanuts. You spend that on a dinner. So why wouldn't you spend it on your kids and on your grandkids? That's how I look at it. Now, again, that it's handled right, it's spent right, it's controlled. If we can reduce it, great. But that's not my top concern. My top concern is getting the bond, getting this built out so that the residents and our children can enjoy it. And it's amazing park. I mean, if you sit and look at the design of these parks and compare them to any city in the state of Florida, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. So the little bit of money they're asking, to me, it's not even a question. But that everything's handled correctly, yes, I agree with that 100%. But that's my perspective. That's how I look at it. I'm not worried about the $10 a month, the $15 a month.
Thank you, Jim. question. I'm gonna let her go first since you already asked, if you don't mind. Thank you.
With that being said, I wanted to congratulate the city. I had heard about the parks bond previously, but I didn't know that it had all this planned, and I'm impressed with what we're going to be having in the city of Doral, and I want to congratulate the city for the work that you have been doing with these parks. For me, it would be an honor to live in a city that has these type of facilities for our kids. One small question, you did mention some type of improvement in Morgan Levy, but you didn't explain. Yeah, exactly.
What we're looking at right now is some of the infrastructure in there, the lighting, also security cameras that are in there are old. We would replace the security cameras in there. So those are the things. It would be more of the infrastructure, things that aren't as appealing, but that are necessary, like the cameras and the lighting. Parking is something, and that's funny. That
Morgan Levy is like terrible.
I know. And we actually added a few 37 parking spaces about 2 years ago, and it still seems like, and we can look into it. I don't want to take out green space to put more parking.
No, I mean, I wouldn't want to either, but it's just chaos. Like for parents, like I stopped taking my kids to soccer there just because the parking was a nightmare. So I stopped taking them there.
Something to consider is that the more facilities that are available, the more diluted the use of the facilities are going to be. If you've noticed lately, I'm sure, because my kids played soccer there at one point too, and it was a nightmare to get there. And so, but when we opened up Legacy Park, all of a sudden you saw a shift in the amount of people going there. Glades Park will be open in the spring of next year. Again, offering another opportunity for people to have green space and to have activities, so it'll start to dilute the use, and you'll see that the parking will be more adequate in these facilities. Now, on special occasions, I'm sure it's difficult, but like Barbie said, we did a few years ago expand it as much as we thought would be appropriate, without taking out green space in the parking area. But you'll see as there's more facilities online, it's going to be a lot easier, and you'll have more options, and people will spread out a lot better.
Thank you. Who will have access to the covered areas and to the park facilities? Is it only for Doral residents, or will it be open to the public? And will it be a membership or fee-based, like Legacy Park, for example, on the for the indoor facilities? There's something like that. Is it going to be similar?
So it is open to everybody. What it is that we do charge a non-resident. So the Doral Central Park, to use that example, or Legacy, to drive in there, it's free. To use a green space, it's free. For the community center, we do charge a membership, and there's resident rates and there's non-resident rates. So yeah, there will be fees for indoor, whether it's programming or memberships, and the reason for that is to offset the operating and maintenance costs. Yes. So that's what we do. That's the reason for the fees. So the bond, the 150 is for capital, construction and building. So the fees is to offset. We don't make money off it, no way, shape or form, but it offsets the operation and maintenance.
Just to add as a reference, when we incorporated, we were mandated to keep 3 parks to access to everybody in the community, and Doral Central Park, Morgan Levy, and which one is the other?
Morgan Levy, Doral Meadow, and Doral Central.
On those legally, everybody has to be accepted. Now, if there is a service, you can have a different rate for residents than from non-residents, which I think is now the gap of that should be bigger if the bond passes, because they are not paying the bond. We're paying the bond. So that 15% differential may have to be reconsidered to be a little bit more.
And we will look at all those things as well.
Exactly.
You have a question in the back, ma'am? Thank you, Pierre.
Going back to her question, especially Morgan Levy. So the situation that is happening right now, which I did all the investigation this morning before I got here, is that it's not only that there is not a space to park, there is not a place to play. Every day from Monday through Friday, from 5 to 9, which the light goes off, there is a school that does not belong to Doral City. It's an independent school registered as a nonprofit, which is working there, and they take 70% of the field, of the soccer field. 70% of the field, they use it. If residents of Doral, who pay taxes, who lives here, that want to use it, the coaches and the people that work at that school tell them straight, get out, because I'm going to use it. Sometimes they're not doing anything. Sometimes they're just in the middle of the field, just playing with some cones, and they don't allow anybody to use the goalie or use the field. They only allow the only small fields, the two only, are available from Monday through Friday from 5 to 9. On Saturdays and Sundays, guess what? They are there too. If you go there at 9 in the morning on a Sunday, straight they tell you, no, I'm gonna use it. I'm sitting in the middle, just playing with some kids. They're not even using the goalie. They have their own goal, the school, and they have a lock. I have pictures, because I took it. And we were even some type of aggressive attitude from one of the coach, because I was trying to play with some friends that we were playing there. Literally, he almost kicked us out of the field because it's there, like they own the park. So who approved that they own the park?
So, number one.
And we already addressed it with the manager.
No, I know who you are now. I actually read the email. So the school is Doral Soccer Club. It is part of the city. They are a partnership of the city of Doral. We outsource the soccer club.
Yeah,
Number
but
one,
they're registered as a company,
give you
separate.
attitude. Hold on, I didn't interrupt you. They shouldn't give you attitude. They shouldn't mistreat you. So I do apologize for that on our behalf, and we'll make sure to talk to the coaches and the Doral Soccer Club president. We outsource soccer because a big demand in the city is soccer programming. It's outsourced, and we actually receive, and it's a partnership through 25%. We get 25% of the revenue because they use our fields. So it's kind of like renting the fields so that they can do the programming. But the programming is there because it's a demand from the community to have soccer, whether it's recreational or competitive. The agreement we have with them, which we're still working out, and when we build more parks, this will also expand as well, because we don't have enough green spaces. Everybody's already stuffed. We have Doral Soccer Club is at Morgan Levy, Juventus is at Doral Legacy Park. So we have two soccer providers right now, so we have two different options. So if you don't like Doral Soccer Club, you go to Juventus. So they do have.
That's not the issue. If you want to go and play with your friends, if you want to go and play with your kids, there's not a space for you to play. And we pay taxes here. We pay taxes here. Everybody that is here pay taxes, even you. If you live here, you pay taxes. So we all pay taxes. We all have the right to use it. We all have the right to use the park. No. Right now, there is a bond for 150 million. We're talking about 5 years forward from now, we will have parks where we will be paying for it. And again, if I want to use it, or my kids want to use it, or his grandkids want to use it, they won't be able to use it unless they pay a fee and are in the club. If he wants to go with his grandkid, he won't be able to use it because they are there every day. Right. When are we allowed to go? Because it's kind of like we have to ask permission to go.
No, one thing we're doing is having open, like you said, that there's spaces open available for the public. We're trying to identify more of those spaces. We just got the school for both Doral Soccer Club and Juventus to have some of the teams go out to the schools after school hours to use them for practice field space to alleviate the green space. That's going to be worked out in the next 2 or 3 weeks. There should be more green space available at Morgan Levy Park. These are things that we're working on with the schools. I understand what you're saying, but there's about 500 kids in that program.
Well, Doral Soccer Club has 70% of the field for their use.
Yes.
They use it every day. And in addition to that, they give attitudes to residents that want to use it, which it shouldn't be like that.
And I apologize.
The complaint was already raised.
Yes, I know.
A few times.
I received the email, I think it was Monday. I think it happened this weekend, if I'm not mistaken.
It happened several times in the last few weeks. It's just that I got to hear now.
Understood.
And I think you've seen my face before because I've been in several meetings. I know. I know you've seen me before. But this time I'm actually raising my voice for a group of about 40-something people that use the park. There is a few like guys that they get together to play. There were a whole bunch of kids, teenagers. So if they have one of the fields and the other one have the field, and even Doral Soccer Club is not even using it. That's what is aggravated. Yeah, they are not even using it. And you ask, oh, you guys finished, can we use it? No, we have it until 9, just like that.
All right, well,
and your manager at the park, he cannot even tell them to, it's like they own the park.
No, we'll talk to them.
He was not even allowed to tell them, can you get out because you're really not using it.
No, we'll talk to them, thank you. No, I know, we're gonna talk.
I have pictures. 5 to 9. The light goes off after that.
we can meet, if you would like to meet, I would like to meet with you guys to actually hear everything that has occurred, and that way we can sit down and go over it, and then we will talk to the Doral Soccer Club. So if you guys can stay behind, let me get your
Oh, I
contact
have.
information,
And I have a
please, and I would appreciate it.
presentation
I
and
want to help.
pictures
I
and
don't,
dates.
again, the parks and the programs, we're here, we want to be good neighbors. This is a community, this is a partnership, this is something that we do together, whether it's, and we're going to be here for many more years to come, whether as residents or administrators, and we want to make sure that we keep a good relationship. So if you both can stay behind, I'll get your information, we can work together and make sure that these issues are resolved so that we don't have these issues anymore, if you can do that.
And just so everybody understands, these are the types of issues that, I've heard a lot of times from residents lately, not a lot of residents, but a few residents that start wondering, well, we have enough parks, why do we need enough more parks? This is why we need more parks. It doesn't excuse at all the treatment, and that's not where, there is no excuse, and I'm glad that the director is apologizing, because we should. There should never be any kind of treatment, if it's within somebody that's renting our parks, whether it's another neighbor, whether it's our managers, it should, absolutely, and that shouldn't be the case. Exactly. But that also brings up that it's not just kids, it's other adults that also want to use facilities, and we need more facilities because our programming is full. We just added a new club because there's more and more requests for the programming. So it's something that is very difficult for them to do, because you have to try to manage the programming and the free play. So with more facilities, we're going to be able to spread it out. That doesn't mean that we're going to add and put programming in every area, but it's going to give us the ability to have more open areas where not just kids, but adults, teenagers, and whatnot can use it anytime they want, because that's what it should be done.
And have 5 years more to play. 5 years from now, I might not be able to play. I want to play now.
Well, that's why we're using
No,
some
you're
of the
gonna be able to
schools.
play
Yeah,
5
we
years. Don't say that. You're active.
His grandkids will play, but he won't be able to play.
Oh, yes, he will. I will see him out there. Oh, yes, he will.
The distribution of the park
Getting him.
that is given to that school is way higher than what the residents have. They have 70% of the park, we have only 30% of the park available to use. It should be at least, I'm not saying to take the program out.
No, I
I'm saying to
understand.
be at least
We're gonna work it
50.
out.
If they're not using it, they should be cognizant to, oh,
Yes,
no,
agreed.
We're not gonna use it, you can play.
I heard you loud and clear.
I just wanted to comment on you're about 20 years younger than me, and I play every day. I'm 50. I'm 50.
Obviously, I'm exaggerating, but that's not, there are people here that maybe they can use it now. In 5 years, they don't have the time to wait for 5 years for this.
Yeah.
Understood.
They want to use it now.
One of the other things you'll start to see in our new parks is what's called flex space.
Yes.
Flex space is very important for this, because right now what you see in Morgan Levy is a soccer field, and that's what it's used for. So the idea with flex space is that you can have a soccer club running on one side, and the other side you can have open space, where you can have an independent couple of kids playing and kicking the ball around. So flex space is something that we're able to do in parks like Doral Central Park, which is much larger and allows for more flexible areas to be able to use for diverse sports.
And don't get me wrong, I'm happy about this. I'm actually excited. I know we're one of the
Really?
big fans, so we got her excited now.
I wouldn't have. I wouldn't have.
I want to be able to use it.
And again, we're here to just inform the community. We're not here to advocate. I want to answer your questions. Morgan Levy, the situation that occurred this.
Right now, I'm saying in general.
Okay. No, and I want to be able to address that as well. So.
I can just tell you from experience, I was one of the founders of Doral Little League here in the city. And when we first started, there was not one baseball field in the entire city. And Doral Isles made a little field that we begged and pleaded and let us use. And we used it from sunrise, no lights, so it was sunrise to sunset all day Saturday, all day Sunday. As the league grew, we couldn't play all the games on that one field. So, and there were still no fields in the city of Doral at the time. So there's growing pains. We just took on the second soccer club because the residents wanted it. And
it's full.
And it's full already.
And there's a waiting list. Yes.
Yeah, they're complaining they need more fields. So then you do the same thing Doral Little League did. You do the same thing Doral Little League did way back, where we went to, what's the school, Doral Academy?
Yes, Doral Academy.
And said, you don't use your field on the weekend. Can we use it? And the city entered an agreement with Doral Academy, and we did that. And that's, I guess, what you're doing now for the soccer.
Ronald Reagan
So,
and Doral Academy.
there's growing
Had to split
pains.
them
I
up.
mean, that's what it is. I understand, and I agree with you 100%. But, it's growing pains. But remember though, the people on the field are Doral residents as well.
Yes, there's, yeah.
Well, not all, but the majority.
Be at least a fair.
Understood.
space.
We're gonna talk.
If they already have so many kids, well, that's it, it's full.
Understood.
The list fields is for the residents.
Right.
We have any other questions in regards to the bond, the projects, comments, suggestions?
When it comes to the design, it's specifically for the bond education, so some feedback about some proposed design, it's outside the session or not?
I'm sorry?
He's asking if the design is, if it's already been approved, or is there still feedback for the concepts?
And the concept for Central?
But I'm telling you, you're probably
there's
thinking
little
about
tweaks here and
programming, like
there.
for specifically for the building, or for. Go ahead.
One specific question. I see Doral Central Park, the
Yes.
southwest corner where you have the tank.
Yes, the stormwater.
Yes. And next to it, you have a parking lot, and then you have more parking next to it.
Correct?
So I fully agree with you. We should try to avoid paving green spaces. I know there is an incremental cost if you were to put a parking lot like the one behind it, but it's pre-construction. So if when the time comes to revisit that, even if its incremental cost is acceptable, to put 2 or 3 layers of parking spots on and around that water tank and the adjacent. Yes, a parking garage. So no, this is pre-constructed. The parking garages are more cheap than to do open space parking in the usage that you have.
We actually had it on the original plan designing, and we took it out.
Because
For
it
the
was
whole area or just that corner from the entrance south?
where the parking lot is. It was an extra
Well, I can take that offline, but
600.
So we did have a
Is it the
parking
aquatic
garage that
facility?
was part of the plan originally to preserve, and allow for more green space. But the parking garage became costly, and each parking space in a parking garage is like $20,000 a parking space. So imagine, surface parking is much cheaper. It's not as efficient use of the land, but it's cheaper right now. What we have considered is maybe looking at how we can eventually maybe lay the groundwork for possibly then later maybe converting some areas, like you said. But right now we're going with surface parking because that shaved about $10 million off of the total proposal for the park.
So maybe designing so you can be adapted to.
Right. That's something that we would, definitely. That's something that we would look at because I mean, it's one thing I know and I like to design into projects is being able to have the versatility and the ability later to not have to retrofit structure, and you can just add on to things, and it gives you more value to your building. It gives it more life.
If you all can please fill out these, it would be super helpful for us. No, because we can't advocate. No, thank you all for coming. We really appreciate you all being here.
Again, thank you. And it's very important that you guys come out. It's very important that you inform yourselves and make the right decision. Like Barbie said over and over again, we're not here advocating. This is just an idea. This is a proposal. And we're trying to give you enough information so that you go out there and make the right decision as with most, being mostly or best informed and the most educated decision that you can make. I mean, the future of the parks is in all the residents' hands and in all of our hands who live here in Doral to vote. So it's important to get out there to vote and just express whatever it is that you believe is right to do. So thank you for taking the time because not everybody does it. I had a call today and I was waiting for some gentleman that was supposed to come who yelled at us. He never made it. I called him to see if he was going to come and he never made it. So I'm going to call him tomorrow and say, hey, you can't yell at me if you're not going to show up. So, but there's some food in the back, please. Enjoy. Thank you again for coming out. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.